What scientific breakthrough are we closer to than most people realize? Story 1. They're hoping that a new drug will be available for use by 2030 that essentially grows your teeth back. It stimulates stem cells in your tooth pulp and encourages growth. Also, to my understanding, this drug was originally being tested as an Alzheimer treatment in Japan. I've seen headlines for the past few years about this kind of research. Even though I'm most likely too far gone to benefit from it, I'm glad to see that we're still on a promising path towards a solution. Even though my situation is my own fault, it always cheers me up to know that we're getting closer to making sure no one ever feels bad about their smile. Story 2. A cure for symptomatic rabies. Using monoclonal antibodies, scientists were able to alter the immune response in rats' CNS significantly into infection. You can read the study here. This is awesome because before this treatment, once you showed symptoms, you were essentially dead. Rabies is also a lot more common in Asia and Africa, with roughly 56,000 cases a year. For anyone interested, the difficulty in treating rabies is that once it's in the brain, it's difficult for anti-rabies drugs in the immune system to get past the blood-brain barrier that protects your brain from things in the blood. What they've done here is create a lab rabies virus that doesn't cause disease but can still get to the brain, and have engineered it to produce antibodies against the rabies virus. That way, the antibodies are now in the brain and can kill the dangerous rabies infecting the brain. Whether it will translate to humans, who knows? It's not the first time they've cured rabies in animal trials. Also, it's going to be expensive as hell. And the cost of the currently available rabies vaccines is what's stopping the eradication of rabies in poorer countries in Africa and Asia, where 95% of cases are. Story 3. Earthquake warning system for up to 2 hours. Permanent GPS antennas are located all over the world and more densely at fault zones. About a year ago, geologists found that if they stacked all historical GPS data proximal to large earthquakes, they saw there is a very small acceleration of the surface about 2 hours before the actual earthquake. We are literally only missing the technology to make even more precise GPS measures, so we can do this in real time on singular regions. It is proven that this is an actual thing that happens, and we can literally warn of earthquakes with a significant time span. And the land movement is so subtle that only by lumping all the data together did the precursor stand out, Bleedery says. If you just remove 1 or 2 quakes, you still see it, he says. But if you remove half, it's hard to see. This is not a solution or has saved any lives, but it is an absolutely staggering discovery that will have an insane focus in the upcoming years. Story 4. Geothermal energy. People have figured out how to reuse all the drilling technology developed for fracking to dig geothermal wells almost anywhere. Geothermal has the benefits of nuclear, reliable baseband power, without the downsides. The footprint is smaller, and unlike nuclear power, you can turn it on and off pretty quickly, which is important for filling the gaps in green energy when the sun doesn't shine or the wind stops blowing. The US government just cleared out almost all the red tape for digging geothermal wells on public land. 2. Basically, it is now as easy to dig a geothermal well as it is to dig an oil well. They're even looking at using geothermal wells like batteries by pumping water into them and pressurizing them. So when there is an excess of solar or wind electricity, it can be stored in the geothermal wells. Geothermal gets real interesting when you start getting into direct energy drilling. There's a few outfits that are working on ways to burn a hole down into the earth using only lasers and microwaves. By using energy, you dispense with all the limitations of traditional drilling. No bore linings or drill pipe turning the bit. You can make the hole miles deep. It takes a ton of energy, of course, but the result is, or will be at least, basically an unlimited source of free heat. With multiple miles of drill range, you can get hundreds of degrees of heat almost anywhere on the planet. Story 5. Early diagnosis and treatment of Parkinson's, I think. I've been following a story for a few years now of a woman who could smell Parkinson's and is now working with researchers to turn her weird, unique ability into an early screening test. That's actually the topic of my bachelor thesis, D, but we do it with immunoinfrared sensors and a bit of cerebrospinal fluid or blood. Earlier diagnostics will open up a whole new treatment window for patients before the damage to the brain tissue is bad enough that they show symptoms. The research group I'm currently in also works on the early detection for other neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and ALS. Story 6. I have a lot of family that works in different pharma companies. We were recently discussing that there is a very promising treatment for Alzheimer's in the works that could stop the progression of the disease and maybe reverse some of the brain damage. It's still in the testing phase and wouldn't be on the market for years, but it's something that would be awesome to be able to use. Story 7, treating depression with neuromodulation therapy instead of medications. Stanford is heavily involved in clinical trials using their SAINT treatment. It essentially uses transcranial magnetic stimulation in a similar way to DBS, but is less invasive and better tolerated. I'm trying to get into one of their clinical trials. I'm looking forward to a day when I don't need medication to stop me from wanting to die. I'm on antidepressant number 7 or 8 at this point, and finding one that works, doesn't make me manic, doesn't kill my libido, and doesn't make me gain weight is impossible. Currently taking vilazodone, which isn't too bad, but probably not as efficacious as it should be. I will say that after years of missing frisson, I'm finally back to getting those goosebumps whenever I listen to music that hits just so. My doc thought this was unusual, but super cool. My doc is also very supportive of me pursuing that clinical trial. The coolest part is that if you're in the placebo group, they will give you the real therapy after the trial is over. Story 8. This is rather an engineering issue, but a lot of scientists are working on this as well. RGB micro LED displays. We can currently build fairly efficient blue and green microLEDs from indium gallium nitride, but the red ones are missing. Red LEDs have been available for much longer than their blue counterparts, but we currently cannot make them small enough for a high PPI display. Many researchers and companies are trying to get the red ones working with several different approaches, and I believe we will see the first commercial applications, starting from smartwatches, smartphones, and AR and VR goggles within the next 5 years. Story 9. Targeted cures for neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Mississippi, etc. I'm currently doing my PhD in a new style of vaccine for AD, and the advancements that have been made in the last few years are incredible. Immunotherapies really are the next major step, aside from gene editing. Edit to clarify wording, as several replies to this comment have stated, cure is a strong word. There has been a big shift in recent years towards a more preventative approach in treatment research, rather than reactive treatments. Unfortunately, with neurodegenerative diseases, by the time you're seeing the symptoms, it may be too late to effectively treat the condition, as is the case with AD and Parkinson's. I won't comment too much on MS, as it is admittedly a bit out of my field, though the general principles are similar in terms of my research. So rather than curing the condition after it has already manifested and presented symptoms, we and other researchers are hoping to develop treatments that don't necessarily halt disease progression, but work to prevent it from occurring in the first place. Sorry for any confusion. Hope this clarifies things. Story 10. Understanding how hormones and mental illness are linked, especially in women who previously were diagnosed with mental illness, but who had endocrine disorders. And to add, menopause. In response to the Lancet's awful claim of over-medicalization, scores of researchers the world over have doubled down to learn more. I know someone who battled with depression and anxiety, and all was gone, when for another reason got treated for hypothyroidism. In a few weeks, he was a completely different person. In recent years, there are studies pointing to a relationship between the gut biome and mental health, too. We don't know too much yet about how certain body mechanisms interact with the mind. Story 11. Large-scale water desalinization. It may seem trivial to most people, but access to fresh water and water purification are the largest problems on the planet. Desalinization has been extremely expensive for years, and never has the investment needed to break the scalability barrier. Well, our friends in the Middle East claim to have made some huge accomplishments over the last few years, thanks to graphene and access to abundant power. Their new plants should be coming online next year. Not having to worry about access to clean water would mean massive jumps in agriculture, industrialization, and population. Story 12, I don't think anyone thinks about cystic fibrosis, but from the 3 years I went from learning about it in medical school to seeing the treatment in residency, people live legitimately normal lives with a disease that had an average lifespan in the 20s only years ago. It brings tears to my eyes and hope for what we can do going forward for a disease that was an early death sentence mere years ago. My better half lost her sister to CF in 2014. The treatments she endured were brutal and the side effects horrible. Our little niece was born in 2015 with CF. and they got her on some of the new meds quickly. You honestly wouldn't know she has it. Nurses who have worked on CF wards are amazed at how well she's doing. It's an incredible leap they have made in treatments. With the advancements, I just hope it brings costs down so everyone can access these meds. Long term, with genetic editing or medicine, hopefully it'll be something they can prevent or cure. Story 13, Susan Shore's Oracle device is capable of treating tinnitus, reducing volume by up to 75% after 12 weeks of treatment, and is approved for FDA. The vast majority of people with tinnitus suffer from neurological tinnitus, and the prospects for curing this kind of tinnitus are both limited and at least a decade away. Susan Shore's Oracle device is of no help. Although there's still some dispute, researchers suspect neurological tinnitus is caused by nerve damage, and that treatment is possible by applying a protein called neurotrophin, 3 directly to a specific region of the cranial nerve source. It's important to note, however, this treatment would lose its effectiveness the longer that a person lives with tinnitus. Story 14, the first cancer cure. There will never be a single cancer cure, but we will probably see the first successful end-all cure for a few different types of cancer within the next 20 years. 100%. It's so close we are right there. The leading push in mRNA vaccines makes me happy. The idea is each vaccine will be tailored specifically to each patient. At the base level, all they are doing is taking out your cells that already kill cancer, T cells, and essentially teaching them to recognize a specific protein in your specific cancer, then giving them back to you so your own body can kill the cancer. Your T cells kill cancer all the time. I believe the estimate was every 5 minutes your body kills a cancer cell. It's when these cancer cells hijack the immune system and hide themselves from the T cells when it becomes the cancer that we know, the cancer that grows and consumes. So we're basically trying to just point to where the cancer is at, giving the T cells a briefing first on how to recognize and attack the enemy, because they were tricked into thinking the cancer was normal cells. We send them back in with their new training and they get to work. I think anyway. Story 15, AI is just a few years out from being able to write programs for better AI, which in turn will write better AI. Is this good or bad? Who knows? Either way, we are not prepared for what comes next. When AI becomes better at decision-making and planning than humans, what then? This is no longer an if, but a when. It's either going to usher in a new age of humans, where technology develops so fast, we achieve things previously thought impossible, or it's going to usher in the last age of humans. We're not talking in the far, unknowable future. We're talking you will probably still own the shirt you are currently wearing. Story 16, Useful Quantum Computers. Quantum computation as a concept has been known for a while, and there are a handful of known quantum algorithms. However, quantum computers weren't built until 1998. The thing is, though, they're being built right now and are getting continually better. They're noisy, expensive, and a pain to work with right now. But they exist and are just getting better. Yes, you read that right. Quantum computers already exist. They just kind of suck at the moment. Story 17, brain chips will one day be able to enable us to live to age 150 by modulating our DNA dialing gene expression up or down by altering RNA and chemicals and hormones in our body. If coupled with a vitamin implant, we could always operate optimally. It'll eradicate mental illness, a variety of diseases, and cancer. We could also alter our conscious state, increase productivity, and focus while at work, as well as alter chemistry to relax the US at home. The chip will also be able to link to the internet one day, accessing information and images, using our internal monologue to convey. Communicating telepathically would not really be used, as it'll be uncomfortable having an involuntary voice in your head. Story 18, everything AI related. No one actually seems to understand how fast we are hurtling into a technological breakthrough that will shake the world more than the internet or smartphones ever did. Everyone I talk to IRL about AI will say, sure, AI will be able to do X in a decade or two. Everyone I talk to online or in tech-savvy spaces will say, AI will be able to do X in 2 to 3 years. And then I see AI able to do that thing in months or weeks. Every AI on the consumer market is a crippled, lobotomized version of what they are capable of. If you didn't have to deal with the imposed limitations that companies put on AI, you could literally tell an AI to write a new symphony from Beethoven, write a fake interview about his thought process behind the piece, have pictures and video of him performing the song, and a good one in 5 people would be convinced it was real or at least actors. The idea of this was laughable 10 months ago, and in another 10 months, who knows where we will be with AI. Story 19, Anti-Aging and Life Extension Technology. We're not close in the sense of like next year, probably not even in 10 years, but quite possibly in 15 or 20 years. And right now, the median age of humans on Earth is just over 30, and the average life expectancy is over 70, meaning that most people currently alive are going to naturally live long enough to take advantage of these technologies. We don't even need to cure aging completely all at once because even if we can add, say, 5 healthy years to a person's life, that means they can also wait another 5 years for additional biochemistry research to improve the treatment and give them even more time. This effect compounds surprisingly quickly, assuming that technological progress doesn't stagnate. Even if we don't start taking the actual treatments for another couple decades, this is a change we should really start thinking about now, because it's going to impact our lives in a very big way. I know it sounds crazy to talk about in a culture that has become so accustomed to aging and death, but if you wait until it stops sounding crazy before you start talking about it, you probably waited too long. Story 20, I don't think people realize how monumental fusion energy is, and we are very much on the cusp of it. We achieved ignition and net energy out of the reaction, but not total system. They also have been breaking records every couple of months in terms of ignition time. We're measuring it in seconds and minutes now, when we were measuring it in microseconds before. Unlimited clean energy anywhere in the world is going to save the planet and go a long way towards alleviating a lot of human conflict. Story 21, Endometriosis urine tests. Currently, the gold standard for diagnosing endometriosis is a laparoscopy. But new research has shown that certain proteins in the urine are dramatically increased for women with endo than those without. This means that as early as next year, we could have the first urinalysis test strips developed to diagnose the condition without surgery. Surgery may still be needed for treatment, but countless women will be able to opt for non-invasive treatment options first. This also means the condition can be diagnosed much faster than the current world average of 6.5 years from onset of symptoms, and women can access treatment much earlier. Story 22, honestly, FTL Travel. Scientists accidentally discovered how to warp space-time by shooting particles at a piece of brass. See Alcubierre drive? The problem we have now is not how to create a jump drive, it's how to power it. To successfully power the drive for actual FTL travel takes something along the line of all the power the sun will ever produce condensed into 1 sec, and it would need to be done continuously. As crazy as that is, though, we're making breakthroughs with antimatter material, etc. So who knows? Story 23 depends what you mean on close. Physicists and astrophysicists have made incredible leaps in the last 20 years, detecting exoplanets to the point where we can analyze the contents of their atmosphere for presence of biological or technological activity. They are also looking farther back, in time towards the beginning of the universe, using infrared and even gravity waves. Where this gets really exciting is that with each refinement of this technology, they are getting closer to solving the discrepancies in physics, such as we still don't know how some elements are made. The smaller ones, like everything lighter than iron, get made in stars through fusion processes. Heavier ones like gold get made in supernovas. But there are ones that are more prevalent in the universe than they should be, given the amount of energy it takes to create such heavy elements. Cesium, for instance. Point being, they have done like 90% of the work towards a final unified theory. Some are saying that the right application of AI will get us the rest of the way there. But I can tell you that there have been breakthroughs in PV solar and energy storage that will be driving down the cost of that tech and making it more efficient. In the near future, there will just be solar panels everywhere and no power plants. The main barriers to that being trade wars between China and the US. Of course, Story 24, Curing Depression. It's already available. People just don't know about it because it's super expensive and sounds scary. It's called TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. I'm currently on my second week of a 6-week treatment. Monday, Friday. For 6 weeks, I sit in a chair and have a machine with a magnetic coil sitting over my skull, specifically targeting the dorsal lateral frontal cortex. A changing magnetic field is used to induce an electric current targeting and stimulating this part of the brain. Electromagnetism sounds like shock therapy, but it is not. It's super non invasive. I sit in this chair for 3 minutes only, and there's an electric pulse, 4 seconds on, 8 seconds off in rotation. It feels like Pikachu is nibbling on my skull. My eye and jaw slightly twitches as the pulse flows. This stimulation to the dorsal lateral frontal cortex helps the brain produce its own dopamine, serotonin, and epinephrine over time, basically curing the depression. And there's a coil that targets a different part of the brain to cure OCD if needed. It's safer than depression medications like Wellbutrin or Zoloft, and it has a high success rate. The best part for me is that back in September in California, TMS was approved by Medi-Cal. So I'm receiving this treatment completely on the insurance's dime. My psych says she has trouble convincing patients to take the treatment for free. Insurance pays because it sounds scary. Movies and TV have a big role in this fear. People hear brain and electricity and think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in such media. Story 25. I hope something for male pattern baldness, hair thinning, receding hairline, and hair loss in general comes along soon. Losing your hair sucks and can destroy your confidence and cause a lot of stress. Hair transplants here in the US are ridiculously expensive, and traveling to another country like Turkey can save you a lot of money, but can be hit or miss. Do your research. Medications like finasteride and minoxidil are available, but once you start, you have to stay on them forever. The possible side effects of finasteride and erectile issues, mood, although these aren't super common, can be a concern. You're also required to be on finasteride in order to get a hair transplant. I'd also like to see advancements in treatment for depression. All the medications I've tried so far have made me emotionally numb and have had side effects. I've heard good things about ketamine and transcranial magnetic stimulation, but insurance companies will do everything to not pay for these, requiring you to try at least 5 medications and other stuff, if I recall correctly. Story 26, can't believe I haven't seen it yet, but cell reprogramming via iPSC. And it's already here for some cell types. A very cool Japanese dude got the 2012 Nobel Prize of Medicine for this. He and his team were able to deprogram a specialized cell and reprogram it into a different specialized cell. For instance, a fat cell into a cartilage cell. This will simply be one of the last big medical advances we make. Messed up your lungs? No bother, get some of your cells, water, and lots of love, and you've got a new pair. No compatibility issues, no rejection or meds, potentially inexpensive. Mind you, there are challenges and safety concerns yet, as you need to tinker with the cell's DNA in order to do it, which is tricky. And we're very, very far away from functional full organs. But the even more bonkers stuff is already happening. They have tried injecting healthy stem cells in the area of damaged tissue, cartilage, if I remember correctly. And somehow the pre-existing cells were able to communicate with the new stem cells, repairing that tissue. I can't put enough emphasis on how absolutely stupid this is. How potentially we could repair parts of our bodies that now we can't dream of repairing. And for potentially peanuts. The possibilities are very near limitless if we manage to make them perfectly safe and we get the engineering part right. Story 27, Humans 2.0. It will take some in vitro gene splicing of zygotes for each new child at conception, but then that child and other such children will genetically have and will be able to pass on the traits of longer and longer lasting telomeres and such. Then that child can expect to age much slower and live much longer than humans do now, perhaps with a life expectancy of 160 to 200 years. At 80 to 90 years old, they will look and function as if they are 35 to 40 years old. Since they have the genetics, they will be able to pass on the same traits to their offspring naturally, unless, of course, they mate with one of the religious nuts who refuse to participate in the zygotic in vitro gene splicing update for their children. And then if their children do not inherit enough of the newly updated traits from their other parent, or if the other parent was equally as religiously convicted, they will experience the joy of aging twice as fast as everybody else, and perhaps passing away after becoming feeble and frail in what will then be thought of as being very early middle age years, like around 80 or 90 or something.